Hi, everyone. Just wait a few minutes for people to get started. As we're trickling through. Just wait for everyone before I start screen sharing. Hi, everyone. Feel free to pop in the Q&A box where you are phoning in, watching from. And if you previously attended the webinar before, Norwich, okay. Love Norwich. Bristol, Hertfordshire, Portsmouth, come on, South Coast. London, Wolverhampton, Swansea, amazing. I'll give it just a couple more minutes for everyone to join. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And thank you to those who also came to the previous webinar. Hope you learned some new things about the Sutton Trust US program. Okay, just give that one more minute. Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me here today. My name is Ellis. I am a program assistant here on the Sutton Trust US program, and this is our application bootcamp webinar. Thank you so much to everyone who's popped into the Q&A box where you are calling in from. It's so nice to see so many people from so many different places around the United Kingdom. It's so good to see so many of you from the last webinar as well. The webinar that is available if you were not able to attend last time, it's available online. That webinar kind of went over aspects of what the Sutton Trust program is and what we offer here at the Fulbright Commission in delivering the Sutton Trust US program. Today, we are going to go through some advice that can help you complete your Sutton Trust US program application if you have started one, or commence your application if you have filled out an eligibility form and are eligible for the Sutton Trust US program. So please do stick to the very end because we are also joined by another alum of the Sutton Trust US program. So we'll be hearing from Katira and she'll be helping us answer some questions at the end as well. Please do save your questions until the end. Feel free to use the Q&A box throughout. but this webinar is also being recorded, much like the first one. So you'll receive a link later this week if you'd like to view that kind of on demand and refresh yourself on any application tips that we're going to go through with you. I'm here with Erin today as well. Erin was here at the last webinar, so we're really excited to kind of see some familiar names and talk you through what we're kind of looking for in a Sutton Trust US program application and some tips to go through with you as well. We're so excited to be doing this, and we know that most of you here today will have already begun your application, so this is brilliant, and we'd love to encourage you to submit as soon as possible after this application webinar. Do take your time, but we hope that this webinar today will cover some useful tips for your application. But I'm going to hand over to Erin now, just to give a kind of brief reminder about what the Sutton Trust US program is.
Thanks, Alice. So hi, I'm Erin. I was also here last time. Great to see that a lot of you have joined us again. And I know that since this webinar is for applicants who've already started a little bit of the application, so hopefully you're already familiar with what is the Sutton Trust US program, but if you just need a refresher, so we're founded and funded by the Sutton Trust, and we're delivered by the US-UK Fulbright Commission. And we're founded under the simple idea that US studies should not be limited to a selected few. So we do a mandatory part 1 for all students who were selected to be on the program. We go over what the US higher education system looks like, what's the difference between here and the US, and we experience the system, whereas there's a optional part 2 of the program where students who, after exploring this, feel like that going to the United States for their university degree is for them. We support them with applying to US universities. So hopefully you're at the right place and you're ready to hear me talk a little bit about the application. And today I'll be mostly covering the informational questions part of the application, whereas Ellis is going to talk a little bit more about the essay questions and the video. And next slide, please. So overall, what are we looking for? So we do look for academic performance and potential, which is why we do ask you about your GCSEs or hires or those equivalent qualifications, but we also really care about your academic potential, which is why, which is a big part of the reasons why we asked for a school reference as well. That way we can, not only can we verify some basic information about you, like what type of schools you go to and what kind of curricular that you take part in, but also we just want to hear from an actual teacher of yours about who you are as a student, what are you like in the classroom, and what kind of personality do you have, and just to hear from someone who's actually taught you and interacted with you what kind of students you are. So we do care about potential, so don't worry about it. I know that I've already been getting some semi-panicking emails saying that I achieved near the level that you described in the website, but what if I haven't achieved as high as I wanted to? And that's totally fine. We still encourage you to apply. And we know that the past few years of pandemic has been difficult for everybody. And as long as we feel that there is a potential in your academic performance, that we can feel like that you've made an effort and it's a upticking sort of, there's a trend that we can sense in there. That's also something that we really value. And we also look at your extracurricular involvement. And this is also, if you do get on the program, we'll talk extensively about this. This is also a big part of what US universities look at when they're reading their actual applications. And the reason why we ask about this is not just to prepare you for when you're actually applying to a university in the US. It's also, again, to just learn a little bit more about you, about how you spend your time outside of school, outside of your classroom. What's your interest? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? And I get a lot of questions about, there's the for the past few years there's been a pandemic, so I haven't been able to like go to an in-person event, or like the competition that I intended to go to had been canceled, or like I was like indoors most of the time, but can I put in like household responsibilities, or like if I self-taught myself to code or to play the guitar, does that count? And the answer is all of those things count. So do not like narrow your understanding of extracurricular activity to school clubs. Like, there are the usual suspects, right? You have your school clubs, you have your school responsibilities, such as if you're a prefect, if you're a head boy or a head girl, and it's not just community activities or work experience. Um, it doesn't have to be an internship. It can also be a part-time job that you participate in outside of school. It can be sports, music, performance. It can be volunteering, or if you have caring responsibilities for a family member, say whether that's a sibling or like a parent or a grandparent. Those are all things that we consider extracurricular involvement. And this is just to emphasize again, a way for us to know what you're like, what's your personality, what you care about, and how do you spend your time outside of school. And the next thing, I kind of touched upon that already, is character. And we understand that, character is something that's rather difficult to manifest on paper, which is why we asked so many questions about your involvement. And Ellis will talk about this a little bit more. So, which is largely also why we have so many different essay questions, and some of those prompts might seem, how is this relevant to study in the US? But we do ask those questions because we want to know a little bit about the inner working of your world, and how you think, and what do you care about, and what what does your creativity look like. And also, that's also why we ask you to make a video of yourself, to just get a little bit of sense of um, how you conduct yourself, how you present yourself, and um, what you're like outside of those on paper questions. And finally, because this is a US oriented program, we want you to have demonstrated interest in US higher education. And that does not mean that you have to come in already with a specific school that you want to apply to in mind, or you don't have to come in already being an expert in all of the things that's involved with applying to a US university, because that's what we're here for. We're the experts on applying to US universities, and we're here to help you with that. But we do want you to come in to have, kind of an idea of why do you want to go study abroad, especially in the US? What makes you a good candidate to study in the US? And just generally, maybe, why are you interested in the US culture, so and so. So all we want to see is that the applicant has a genuine interest in US higher education. Um, um, Although that, there's the second part of the program is optional, and not everybody would end up applying to US University on the bachelor's degree level, but we still feel like we want to offer this opportunity for someone who's keen on cultural exchange, for someone who would benefit the most from this experience. And there is a secret fifth factor in what we're looking for that's not here on the slides. We call it context, and we talk about this a lot even after you get on the program, and which is why we ask so many questions. Some might seem a little bit extensive or personal about your life, your family, ask you, which is also why we ask a teacher to write a reference for you, because we feel like what you achieved is important, but more importantly, we want to know about how you achieved what you have achieved. So if you go to a school with fewer resources, or if you live in a region that does not allow you to have as much access to different activities as someone who lives in a bigger city, then we want to know about that. And we're really, really impressed by some of our students who managed to achieve as much as they can with very limited resources offered to them. Equally, if you do live in a region or go to a school that has a little bit more resources than other state schools in the country, we're keen to see that you're the kind of person who would take advantage of those resources to the fullest and enrich yourself and fully engage with your environment. So that's what we call context, and that includes obviously the elephant in the room. Everybody has been going through difficulties in the past few years of the pandemic. So if you feel like that's something you want to share, please feel free to share it in any number of the essay questions in the text box to share that with us. And next slide, please. Thank you. So just to talk a little bit about the form question part of the application, the most important thing to know is just it's due on Sunday, January 15th, 2023. Are there other part of the questions I've already covered, so we'll just go through this slide very quickly. The only important information here is please do remember to submit your application before January 15th. Next slide, please. Yeah, and a equally important deadline to remember is January 18th, which is your school reference form. And I've talked a little bit about why we ask for a school reference form. This is to support your application, verify that you meet the program criteria, confirm that your school is willing to support you. And this can be completed by any member of staff at your current school. So whether that's a teacher or your head of sixth form, head of the year, careers advisor, pastoral manager, any person who you feel like knows you the most and is most likely to support you through this process, please feel free to ask them. And one important thing is that please check with the school staff that you're sending the invitation to, and make sure that they know what this is about and have the capacity to help you before you send out the invitation, because the invitation email is automatically generated once you submit the school information part of the application. So it will not be sent after you submit your application. It'll be sent right after you say that you've completed the school information part of it. And we don't want your teacher to be confused and send, asking, what is this about? Can I support the student? So please make sure that you reach out to them before you send it out. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we are here today to talk about a few tips that makes your application smoother. Some of this I've already touched upon. Some of those is just purely based on past experiences. So, for example, I've already talked about giving as much context as possible. Um, and the second one is a more practical one because a lot of students would draft their essays in the text box and it will come out not in the in the sort of form or in this kind of sequence that they want it to be presented, and they panic over it, or they want to make edits, but it's just not so handy. The online text box is not so handy for that. So if you want to make sure that your essays is 100% how you want it to look at, how you want it to look like, please draft your essays in Word first. And this also helps with saving a record of your application because, sometimes you submit accidentally, or sometimes, you log out and all of the record is lost, and we don't want that to happen. And we understand that a lot of you have limited resources, and you think, oh, I'm not so tech savvy. What if this, like, I don't want to submit a video because what if I made like a really homemade sort of video with just me talking about myself, and would that hurt my application? Absolutely not. So this video is not for the purpose of testing how well your video making skills is. It's rather just for us, like I said just before, to get a sense of who you are outside of that, paper application. So, and as long as you submit a video, I can confidently say that it helps your any video that you submit is going to help with your application. So please do so, and please don't hesitate to reach out to your school or local libraries or even a friend if you feel like that you don't have the necessary equipment at home to make a video. And next tips I want to talk about is to avoid cliches. What do we mean by this? This is sort of combined with the next point of being yourself. So we know that when you're doing an application, you're being assessed by someone, and you have that urge of sounding very eager or very textbook, or saying the things that you think the people reading the application want to hear, such as, ever since I was 5, I've been wanting to go to the United States for studies. If that's true for you, then feel free to say that. But it's more important to just be yourself, because we're more likely to remember someone who's true to themselves, who really shows their personality and their character through the application, than someone who tells us what they think we want to hear. And we adopt a U.S. policy of holistic admissions when reviewing application. That means that we take into account all aspects of your application. That includes everything that I just talked about. So don't be afraid to show off. Like you, and this is sort of common for UK students. You might feel like that you're bragging, you feel a little bit embarrassed talking about yourself and how much you've achieved, but we're so eager to hear about that. So don't be afraid to showcase your achievements. And this is so important when you're discussing your activities, your community involvement, your goals, etc., etc. And so please don't worry too much about a single part of your application, because we do adopt a holistic view, and we'd love to see like as many aspects of your life as possible. Next slide, please. Yeah. And finally, these are some useful tips as well. Very important to save at the end of each section, because it does get lost. you can't imagine how many times I've already answered an email from a student saying that, oh, that's not correct information, or I didn't save, can you help me? Well, unfortunately, if you don't save, we can't see it on our end. And do make sure to submit before the deadline, even just slightly before. Do not leave your submission until the last minute. There are just too many things that can go wrong if you leave it until the last minute, including your internet crashing or our service crashing because too many people are trying to submit, etc. And I already mentioned like this before. Make sure that your school staff member knows that you're asking them for a reference, and also make sure that they know the deadline is January 18th. Don't be afraid to be a bother. Just keep reminding them of that because teachers are busy and they're very likely to forget. And save a copy, I already talked about that. Check your application before hitting submit. Again, can't tell you how many students have already emailed in saying, "Oh, I put my name down wrong," or like that was the wrong email address. And this does not affect you negatively, but just as we receive more and more applications, we have less and less capacity to help you with changing your details like that. So please make sure that you've checked it before you hit submit. And be as detailed as you can. I already talked about that. Also, please do work on your application over the winter break. We know that this is a lot to ask of a person, but there's a lot of material to go over, and you want to ensure that you're submitting the strongest application you can. Finally, if you have any questions at all, please email us at suttontrust@fulbright.org.uk. We're very much happy to help you answer anything. And I believe with this slide, I'll be handing it over to Alice.
Thank you so much, Erin, for that in-depth analysis of the kind of person that we're looking for. Very, very, very useful information. Thank you so much. As Erin mentioned, we do adhere to a holistic admissions process, and this does mean that we do take into consideration what you're like in the classroom, whether that be your personality or the grades that you're getting. But it also means that we take into consideration your personality outside of the classroom. And you might be familiar with this kind of term from American TV shows and films, but your extracurricular list is something that we view with equal weight to all the other parts of your application when we read through your application to the Sutton Trust US program. So with your kind of extracurricular list, we want to make sure that you are providing as much detail as possible. I know it's really easy to just assume that if you write something down that says like, oh, basketball, I play basketball, but or netball, for example, I compete in for my school's team in netball. Applying to this program as a student from the UK, it's easy to assume that all of us are going to be able to understand what this means. So I really encourage everyone to assume that everyone is not from the UK. Erin, as you heard from, grew up in China and then moved to the United States. So Erin, who will also be on the reading team for your applications, might not understand what netball is. So I think that's an encouragement to make sure that you obviously do not go into the territory of copying the first sentence from the Wikipedia page and being like, netball is a sport that is played, but just making sure that you include kind of what position you are, or how often you compete in a match, or what level you play for your chosen sport, if it is a sport that is your extracurricular. You know, more so as well, simply writing Duke of Edinburgh might not be kind of the best idea, because we see a lot of people who do compete, who do complete the Duke of Edinburgh award. So we really want to know, what is that skill that you're undertaking? What is that physical activity? What is that volunteering aspect? And if there's enough space as well, maybe why you chose to do those things, especially with the volunteering aspect, because simply writing Duke of Edinburgh isn't going to kind of mean a lot to us unless you're telling us exactly what it is that you're being clear about. And it might sound alien, and it might sound a bit odd, because it might just sound a bit obvious as to what you're writing. But I think if you take the viewpoint of assuming that all your application readers are not from the UK, I think that will put you in a good kind of frame of mind to explain your extracurricular. And again, that ties into the third point of making the most of the space provided. Again, we don't need a kind of history of the extracurricular that you undertake. For example, like, you know, knitting was invented in, but we do need some kind of detail as to what it is that you're involved about that activity. And I really encourage everyone to also think about the impact on the wider community that has. It's all well and good saying, you know, I do some knitting. That's really, really nice to know. But how does that extracurricular activity affect other people, and how are you making a contribution to the community with the specific extracurricular activity that you undertake? And I really, really encourage everyone to make sure that you make the most of that space, and explain kind of the outreach that each of your extracurricular activities that you put down has to a wider audience. Talking about holistic admissions, you know, we view grades and extracurriculars in equal weight. We also give you some short essay questions to answer that we also view in equal weight, compared to your grades and your extracurriculars. And this is your chance to show off what you might already know, or if you don't know much, what you might want to learn through the program about being interested in US study. You know, have you been interested in universities for a while? How long for? Or are you really interested in US culture? And, you know, what in particular are you interested in US culture about? These are all the things that we really, really do want to hear. And I don't know if any of you have attended USA College Day. We'd love to know if you are part of a USA College Day event hosted by Fulbright in a previous year at all. And if you're not sure where to start, I can give you some helpful hints. Researching and talking about the liberal arts curriculum, and something that we've already been discussing, holistic admissions. Those two things are really, really good to mention in your short essay questions, especially for this one in particular, how and why you became interested in US study. You will also have the chance to showcase your interest in your video, which we'll talk about later, and that's because, you know, we're genuinely judging your interest in being on the program. So if you do feel as though you've really got your interest across through in these essays, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be uploading a video. The video, as Aaron said, is a required part of the program. But again, it's another tool that you can use to make sure that you get across your point of how much interest you have for this program. And I really encourage everyone to be as honest and as personal as you like. Of course, do not feel like you have to share something that you don't feel comfortable sharing. But the more honest and the more personal, the more we get an insight into your personality, and the more that we can then take your application as a whole and view you, you know, as a potential candidate for the Sutton Trust US program. So the next question, telling us about an extracurricular activity you do / have done and its impact on others. This is kind of something I touched on earlier. We take everything into account, and we hold the extracurriculars to the same level as grades. And this actually, prepares you for the process of the Sutton Trust US program by kind of undertaking these essay questions. And this is, these are things that I've kind of like touched on earlier. Do not afraid to be passionate. And again, think about that wider impact on the community that you had with your role. Not only thinking about how it affected other people, but think about how it affected yourself as well. How did you undertaking this extracurricular or delivering something or competing in something, how did that make you feel? Again, this ties into the personal feeling of your previous short essay question. The more we see of your personality and the more like kind of honesty we see and the more personableness we get through, the more we can kind of piece together your application to the Sutton Trust US program and see you as like a fully realized candidate. Third question, tell us an aspect of your life that has shaped who you are and without which your application would not be complete. This is an opportunity to tell a story about you. This is exciting. This is free realm. There, not saying that the previous questions aren't free realm, but there are certain kind of limits to that question as to what we are looking for in those questions. And this question might feel a bit, overwhelming, as it's quite a different question to one that you maybe had before for other interviews. But I just encourage everyone to be excited about the process and to reflect and learn about yourself. As a disclaimer, your application will be confidential with us on the Sutton Trust US program team. So this won't, whatever you write for this question will not go any further than that. And as a starting block, I would potentially think about asking your friends or your family what makes you you. Is there anything that they can point out that makes, oh, that's so, insert your name here. Oh, when you undertake this activity, that your personality really shines through. And maybe something that didn't even think about yourself. Again, as Erin said, it can sometimes feel so difficult to write about yourself as a British person, coming from a country of being modest and being humble about things. But this is a chance to kind of feel like you can write down whatever you want to without anyone judging you. And if anything, with the idea to get across your personality to make sure that we can get a fully realized picture of yourself. And it's thinking about, how do you want us to remember you in your application? How can you stand out? How can you help us to kind of remember what you have written? And I'm just thinking about it now. We've read so many things. I can still remember applications from last year purely because of this question and what they had to write. And it's very enjoyable to read. So yeah, please do make sure that you kind of get you across in this question. As Erin mentioned, the video is a mandatory requirement. We do ask it, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It does not have to be a Final Cut Pro YouTuber style of video. It can just be a phone propped up against, or any kind of image capturing device propped up against a stack of books, and you're just sat there and you're talking into the camera. We just want to make sure that we get to see you and we get to kind of understand how this written application then matches, the personality and the person that we see on the video, to kind of realize the kind of full picture, as I was talking about earlier. Yes, this is something that is kind of like the final piece of the puzzle. But it does, as I say, it doesn't have to be a cinematic masterpiece, but do feel free to kind of be as creative as you like. And if you feel like you've not been able to get across something about your personality in a question, use that in the video. I would say if you feel like you need to kind of add something to a short essay answer, but you've run out of space for that answer, keep that idea in mind and think about how you can weave that into the video to make sure that you come up with something that's maybe a bit different, maybe a bit left field, but is also perfect for us to kind of remember who you are and stand out amongst the pool of applicants. So that kind of covers everything that we're looking for in terms of questions and the video. I'm going to ask Katira to come onto screen now. Katira was a student on cohort 10 of the Sutton Trust US program and is now at New York University in Abu Dhabi. She's in the class of 2026. She started this year. So I'm going to ask Katira now to sort of reflect on the slides that we've just seen, and think. I know it's been a while since you applied to the Sutton Trust US program, but is there anything that you can kind of think of that, you know, from an applicant side of thing? Is there anything that you can think of to help any of our kind of prospective cohort 12 students thinking about the slides that we've just seen? So over to you, Katira.
Thank you. So just while you were doing your presentation, I actually rewatched my video, and like rewatching it, I remember filming the video, and I definitely put it to last. I think it's definitely the most intimidating part of the application. But I think like just start it, like because I remember putting it off for a very long time. I think you should just start it, and see like how it goes. Just like and Erin mentioned, it does not need to be a fancy video. Like if I was to show my video, all I did was I placed my phone there and just filmed like 5 different clips and collaged them, and that was practically it. Now that I'm reflecting 2 years later, I realized that if I was to give myself like advice, I would say make sure like you're confident about what you're talking, to be confident what you're talking about. So for example, look at the liberal education. So like a big idea of American universities is having a well-rounded education. So of course you major in a subject, but it's the opportunity of like doing let's say you're majoring in CS, which I am, being able to minor in like Mandarin or taking theatre classes. So make sure you really understand that concept, I'd say. Anything that's very like key to US universities, make sure you understand them. I know for one of the parts of the clips, it was to research a university. So I chose Tufts University, which is a research university, if I remember correctly, in Massachusetts as well. And what you want to show when you do that part of your video is not only did I go out of my way to like pick a university, but like you're actually understanding what makes that university like a well-known university. So like, for example, my university in NYU, is known for being incredibly diverse. I think the class of 2027, it's had over 100,000 applications. Like, you need to know those kind of things. And another thing is the application, including the essays, the references, it's very long. It mirrors the Common App essays. So when you're applying for UK universities, you have UCAS, but for American universities, it's the Common App. And the application process is completely different. It's much longer, much more personal, and you have to really learn how to like you have to learn how to brag. You have to learn how to show off about what you've done, how it's affected other people, what it shows in your character as well. That's a very big thing about US universities. They're not just looking for like the smartest kid in the street. They're looking for someone who fits their idea of a like what's the word, like for example, if you were to graduate from that university, if they were to contact you again, then you would be like, oh yeah, they went to that university. Just knowing your fit as well, and just making sure your personality really shows through. I was rewatching my video, like I mentioned, and I think that really showed like for example, I wanted to like travel when I go to university. I wanted to meet a load of different cultures, which I am doing currently at my present university. So like NYU Abu Dhabi is incredibly diverse. I've met people from every single country you could think of. I've already traveled as well. So just make sure you really show your personality through your video. Again, it does not have to be fancy. It's not Legally Blonde. You don't have to do a whole documentary. Just make sure it's quick, simple, get straight to the point. And also don't, I think it's like 5 minutes. Don't feel like you need to just say like a lot of words to fill that time, because I think that was a problem I had. I felt like I was saying a lot of it very quickly, and I didn't actually say things of substance at first. So just make sure you, I think one of the tips was like draft almost like an essay of what you want to mention. That is probably the most important thing that I did. I had like a sticky note with all of my notes, and I stuck it on my phone. So while I was talking, I could look at those notes as well and keep on like talking normally and making sure I sound confident. And another thing about the video is that it shows like how much you care about it as well. If you're filming like a 5-second video, like you're trying to do as quickly as possible, like it's not going to give a good impression of you. Make sure you do it at an appropriate time. Make sure you're talking clearly. Make sure you're looking at the camera while you're talking. Make sure you know what you're talking about, and then the staff can see that and they'll be like, "That's a good candidate that could apply in the future years, a year after." So I think that's the main advice I would say. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kira. I think that you touched on some very, very important points, and some things that you kind of would not necessarily kind of think of, the kind of the most kind of simple thoughts, because I know it can be so daunting, being like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I have to record myself and send this off and someone is going to watch this. But I think your advice of saying stuff saying things in the video that are of substance and not just kind of filling up that time limit with words to kind of, because that could detract from what you've said previously.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's really, really, really good advice. I've got a question for you. Do you remember doing any of the do you remember anything about the kind of short essay sections? Do you remember what you had to write about yourself for the short essay questions?
Yeah, I think okay, like I mentioned, you do have to kind of brag. So I remember I like looking in hindsight, it's very much like pick me, choose me to be like part of your program. So when I did my A levels, I did maths, like for maths and computer science. I was like the only girl in all my classes. So like all those like small unique things about me that like distinguish me from any other candidate, I tried to really highlight. So I was like, oh, I'm like the only girl in my STEM classes, but that's led me to do like X, Y, Z, which is like promote other young girls to go into STEM as well. I remember like all my older sisters and my parents, they were born in Afghanistan, whereas I was like the first born in London. So there was like that gap between me and my older part of the family. And then I was like like there was just a lot of things I remember saying that was like very particular to me. And you realize when you're filming the video, you feel like an idiot because you're just rambling about yourself. But that's like what makes your video like actually stand out. Yeah, and I had to do the same for my application to this university and I got in, so it worked.
That's some fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Katira. Katira will be sticking around for questions at the end. But thank you very much for your time and for that explanation of your kind of experience of applying to the Sutton Trust US program. Of course, as well, there are other ways to learn about US study. As a kind of just like a tie-off to this webinar, the Sutton Trust US program is delivered by us at the Fulbright Commission. So I'm here working for the Fulbright Commission, and we offer all sorts of advice in terms of applying for undergraduate study in the USA. So I'll hand over to Erin for the penultimate slide. Thank you.
And just last but not least, our partner Sutton Trust has other opportunities that are open now, including the UK summer schools and apprenticeship summer schools. So if you're interested in doing these type of programs at all, but you feel like that the United States is not for you, please do make sure to learn more about all of these amazing programs at suttontrust.com. And I believe that's it for the presentation part, and we'll be taking questions now.
Yes,
we appreciate this very nice
do.
picture.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yes, please do pop your questions into the Q&A box. thank you so much to those who already have, and thank you to everyone who's stuck around until the end of this webinar. I really hope you are able to kind of get some good insights into applying for the Sutton Trust US program. So let's have oh, I've got an interesting cohort question about cohorts. What are cohorts? Great question. Cohorts are the intake of students that we have every year for the Sutton Trust US program. So right now we're currently working with cohort 11. Katira was in cohort 10, came onto the program in 2021, I believe. Cohort 11 came through in 2022, and everyone here on this webinar as prospective cohort 12 applicants will be coming through in 2023. What will my teacher's reference include? What will they need to say about me? Just so I can give them a heads up. Erin, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, muted myself. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about. So no, much like I see another question about the teacher's reference, no, much like the US university applications, you're not supposed to see what your teacher writes for you. But essentially, also much like the US university's application will be asked about in the teacher's reference form consists of like some basic information about your school, verifying that it's a state school, what region it's in, how many students do you have, like, just profile information like that to help us know a little bit more about the school that you go to. And we also ask the teacher to talk about you, what they think of you as a student, your characters, your academic performances, all of that. And it is a little bit it's a lot of information, and we understand that, which is why we do provide a sample reference form within the invitation that we send to teachers. So although you're not supposed to see what your teachers write in those, but please do remind them that they can take a look at the sample before they start, and maybe I know that a lot of information is not always on hand for them, so they can have a head start on gathering those information.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erin. I've seen a question here as well. Someone's asked, I don't really know what you'd say for the last essay question about what course you would make if you're a professor. I love that question on the application. Katira, I don't know if you would like to take that one.
Yeah, so I remember my answer to that question when I did the application. I think it was like the nature, no, wait, I think it was like the mathematics in real life situations or mathematics in nature or something like that, because I like maths. But when I realized, like, actually a year after, when I spoke to, like, this was a year after we got accepted onto the program, I asked the people like in my cohort what they wrote for that question, and it's honestly incredibly random. Like, it's nothing, the staff are not there to analyze your answer to that question. It's more to show about your personality and your character. Like, I cannot remember what some of my friends from the cohort said, but like, they were incredibly random ones. And if you like, let's to get onto this program and delve deeper into American universities, you'll see that a lot of the classes are very random. So for example, at my university, we have the core curriculum, and that, in short, like, it's a graduation requirement. So you have to take a class in something in like Islam, something within nature, something within DT, like a bunch of random classes. So for example, I'm doing a class called incarceration, which is, I'm not exaggerating, it's just a class about prisons and how it affects society. Keeping in mind that I'm a computer science major, so it has absolutely nothing to do with what my future career might be. but it's just like I think it's just more of a fun question to like really showcase your character and just like your creativity as well. I don't think it's something to stress about too much. Just like have fun with it and make sure it's representative of you.
Fantastic answer. Thank you so much. I think that really represents that answer that we do ask, and that, you know, I think that's a fantastic comparison that you make for yourself in terms of what kind of major you are, and the other kind of classes that you're taking, or you're able to take. Thank you so much, Katira. I've seen a lot of people asking about extracurriculars to write down due to the pandemic. We totally understand that, you know, you kind of like everyone who is a prospective cohort 12 applicant would have gone through the pandemics. We do understand that extracurriculars, in terms of being able to fill up that entire list, might not be so easy. But we've had a lot of people asking us, like, does paid work, does my part-time job count as an extracurricular activity? Absolutely. That absolutely counts as an extracurricular, because it shows your dedication to a task, and it also, of course, has a wider impact on the community. And it's also something that you undertake outside of your school life. So by default, absolutely, that definitely counts as an extracurricular. I'm also seeing a couple of questions of people asking, does applying for more than one program with the Sutton Trust affect my chances of getting in? Of course, as we kind of showed on the second to last slide, there are the Sutton Trust Pathways programs, as well as the Sutton Trust US program. So, Erin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so students are allowed to apply for more than one program within the Sutton Trust sphere, but you're only allowed to take part in one. So technically, if you've already taken part in, or are currently already a part of another Sutton Trust program, unfortunately, you won't be able to attend the Sutton Trust US program. However, if you do happen to receive multiple offers from different programs, you would still have to choose one to participate in, which is why we ask about whether you've been on another Sutton Trust program on the application, because we want to make sure that everybody that we give an offer to is actually able to take up that offer, and just want to make sure that our resources goes to, you know, people who can actually attend.
Thank you so much for answering that, Erin. That brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Apologies if we didn't manage to get around to your question, but please do feel free to pop us an email on suttontrust@fulbright.org.uk. That is Fulbright with one L. I will pop that into the chat box for everyone. And myself and Erin will be on the other end to answer any of your queries. I would just love to say thank you to Katira as well for joining us on this webinar. Amazing insight. It was fantastic to work with you on the program as well. So thank you so much for joining us here live from Abu Dhabi, where I'm sure it is much warmer than it is here in the UK. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us today on this webinar, and we will see you soon in your video with your submitted Sutton Trust US application. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.